Hey, all you truthers and everybody else out there, it's February 20th, 2014. Getting ready to go out and shovel a bunch of snow over the next 24 hours, it looks like. But at any rate, I wanted to come to y'all today because I think it's time. It's been long past time, but it's time that we, the people, stand united on behalf of all good parents and their children everywhere. I qualify that as good parents. There are many of us who are good parents. I'm the father of a 15-year-old son. Great kid. And I'll tell you what, if any public school entity or any government entity wanted to come to me and tell me that I'm a terrible father or try to take my son from me for some frivolous reasons like I took him to the doctor because I thought he had the flu, and they decided to go back in his medical records and determine that a previous hospital who had been treating my son for a period of time for a physical disease, they decided to now overrule that prognosis and demand that their prognosis is the only correct one. As far as I can tell, that's two opinions. And if I don't want to go along with what they tell me I need to do, they suddenly have the ability to sign some stupid form, some ridiculous communist form, because it's worded somewhat vaguely, but then again maybe not, as I'm about to show you as I go through this. What I'm talking about, guys, is a young lady, last name Pelletier, and she's in Boston, Massachusetts, and her parents have had their rights removed as far as being the parents of their daughter. Um, this young lady was diagnosed a few years back with a physical disorder, a physical ailment of her body. This ailment is called mitochondrial disease. It can it's somewhat it's autoimmune, and it can attack your muscle tissues. Is one of the symptoms. Make you feel weak, make you feel like you don't want to do anything. And this young lady was skating and doing wonderful things with her life, as all young people do and should. And suddenly she went from being very vibrant and alive like any other teenage girl and going through these issues, all this pain, muscular pain and weakness. And so some doctors, which I'm sure went to the same colleges as the doctors at Boston Children's Hospital, diagnosed her with mitochondrial disease, a physical ailment. Now, fast forward. Her parents took her to the doctor last year. This is February 2013 for flu symptoms. Boston Children's Hospital, and I'm going to name them. I don't care. Even I don't have a gag order on me, like they've had imposed on the girl's family. These poor folks aren't allowed to talk to anybody about what's going on with them, and I'll tell you why. It's because the hospital's afraid of public support. The hospital's afraid of being found out that they are completely wrong in what they've done. And when I read a few things to you guys, you make the determination. Then you decide if you want to stand behind the Pelletiers in Boston, Massachusetts. And if you want to become her father's voice. And we'll all just stand in and we'll be his voice on her behalf to draw as much attention to this problem as we can, because it's not just them, folks. It's been happening everywhere. Everywhere in this country, everywhere in the UK. You can find articles all over the place about parents in the UK who've had their children taken from them by child services for absolutely frivolous, stupid reasons. When has it become so easy to point the finger of neglect and or abuse? Now, don't get me wrong. If a parent is abusive and the evidence is there, I mean, If I brought my son to the emergency room for flu symptoms and they found bruises all over his rib cage and they found broken bones in his body, and they could definitely see signs of physical, mental, and or sexual abuse with my son, then I should have the book thrown at me. I should never be allowed to look upon a child again in my lifetime. That's what Form 51A is for. That's what it was designed for. It wasn't designed for a doctor who disagrees with another doctor's diagnosis and says, this is what's really wrong, this is what you need to do. And when you don't agree with the doctor, because we're all told to get multiple opinions, I guarantee you this. If I went to the fucking doctor and I said it, yes, I did, and I'm not even going to apologize. This makes me so stinking mad. I'm pissed. But if I went to the doctor and they told me I had cancer and I was going to die, do you think I wouldn't go and talk to 6 other doctors before I determine? And not to mention, I would explore some natural things to see if there was anything out there that could help me. Well, if I'm going to do it for me, I'm going to do that for my son, as these parents have the right to do for their daughter, because they chose not to agree with that particular hospital, Boston Children's Hospital. Yep, Boston Children's Hospital. Because they chose not to agree with the doctors at that hospital chose to fill out Form 51A, which in the state of Massachusetts, then gave the hospital the right, along with Department of Child Services, to take the child out of the parent's custody without a court trial, without any proofs being submitted to anyone anywhere. This was the investigation, the filing of a piece of paper by one Christ complexed individual. Yeah, I said that too, because you know what? A lot of doctors, they have a Christ complex. They think because they've gone to school for umpteen years, and because they make big money, and I shouldn't blanket. There are good doctors out there. Let me just stop myself there before I get really off the rails. But there are good doctors. But it's these ones with the Christ complex, the ones who believe they're God, the ones who believe that they are the only ones who can save people and or allow people to die. It's those doctors I'm speaking of right now, because this is a glaring example of those kinds of doctors. So you have a doctor with a Christ complex at Boston Children's Hospital, and then you have a Department of Child Safety worker who has a Christ complex, believes that they, in their heart, they believe they have the ultimate power. Therefore, they'll wield their little sword wherever they see fit. This was not a case, folks. If you really just look at it, I've only really dug in for about 10 or 15 minutes. I looked up a few definitions of mitochondrial disease. Now, this children's hospital doctor, Boston Children's Hospital doctor, says it's a somatoform disorder is what this little girl has. Well, that's funny, because somatoform is not a hereditary condition. However, mitochondrial disease is. And guess what? The 25-year-old daughter of these folks, who was never taken out of her parents' custody for all the time that she has dealt with mitochondrial disease, has the same problem. Nobody took that daughter away. Nobody did nothing to affect that daughter. So some doctor with a God complex decides to step in and say, no, they were all wrong. You have to go by what I'm saying now. You have to do what I'm prescribing now. If you don't, well, now I think you're abusive and neglectful. Well, let me read to you Boston, Massachusetts government website on the definition of neglect. Failure by a caretaker, either deliberately or through negligence, or inability to take those actions necessary to provide a child with minimally adequate food, clothing, shelter, Medicare, supervision, emotional stability, and growth, or other essential care provided, however, that such inability is not due solely to inadequate economic resources or solely to the existence of a handicapping condition. This definition is not dependent upon location. Neglect can occur while the child is in an out-of-home setting. Okay, so let's go back into that definition for just a bit, and let's look at that. Minimally, the word minimally, adequate, medical care. Take the words in between there out. Minimally adequate medical care. Well, it seems to me that these folks have been going above and beyond minimal. They took her to the hospital for flu symptoms. That would be minimally adequate. However, through her lifetime so far, they've had her being treated for what sounds like could be, depending on what part of your body this disease attacks, it could be very severe. It could be very horrible. Just like horrible to very horrible. Reading the symptoms and things that can happen to a person's body who has this. Now, in everything I've read, I have yet to come up with something that makes these parents neglectful and or abusive other than a doctor's determination. I don't have a lot of time left in this part one, but I still have quite a bit I want to say about it. So there will be a part 2, and there'll be a part 4, there'll be a part 10 until these folks get their daughter back at home with them, and these courts and these hospitals and these government entities understand and realize what truly abusive, neglectful parents are. There are people who smoke dope in front of their kids, who shoot up in front of their kids, and they keep their kids, and they continue to collect all sorts of benefits from the government. And here's some people that have been doing everything they can to make sure that their daughters, both of their daughters, have had the care, medically and otherwise, that they need to get through the conditions that they both have. Hereditary. Remember that, folks. Mitochondrial disease is hereditary. Somatoform disorder is not. For all you people out there who believe you have Morgellons, I mean, I've seen the physical manifestations of it. I don't know. But the doctors, from what I understand, tell you people that you have it. It's in your head. These sores, these symptoms, it's all in your head. You're creating it. You're making yourself suffer. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Come on, folks. We the people. United we win, divided they win. It's time we stand united for parents like the Pelletiers. I'm in Wisconsin, and if I had a way to get to Boston, Massachusetts to stand outside of that courtroom or in that courtroom, you can darn well bet I would. There should be no gag order. That is a violation of Mr. Pelletier's First Amendment rights if I ever heard any. The only people that get hurt by him talking to the public about the help that he's looking for and needs is Boston Children's Hospital, and the fact that they know they're committing malpractice and they've overstepped their authority. Period. End of story. We'll have to talk at you later. Till then, God bless, and stand the fuck up.